The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program, just hours away from game day, so a lot going on. He's Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Each and every Thursday, we are joined by Josh Ward of the Sports Animals, so we love that. And Josh with a fantastic piece concerning the most impactful Vols of this upcoming 2023 season. Also, a breakdown of the secondary, and has one of Tennessee's defensive backs found a home. And college football, the college football playoff, that is, has said no changes to the format until the realignment dust settles. I guess that means that the Pac-3 will still get somebody in. Week one, picks and bets brought to you by Zen Sports. And we've got a lot to get to on the program. So, Calhoun, how are you, sir, as we get going in a game week?
Oh, I'm super psyched. Week one starts today. Florida, Utah tonight. Dave loves how hard Utah plays. It warms his heart. So
it's the worst compliment ever. And I'll say this about Brent Hubbs, who I love to death. Brent, I remember told me a story. He said about John Ward, because Brent was very young at the time. He started working for the Vol Network, and somebody asked John about Brent. He goes, "He tries very hard." And that, when you say somebody's really likable or tries very hard, that's not the greatest compliment. Now, Brent is one of the best journalists in the biz now. This was way back in the mid 1990s, but when you say he tries very hard or he's very likable, like Trey Lance, that basically means that you're lacking in some other categories. So we'll see if
like when your girlfriend says you try really hard, that's not something you want to hear.
That's the worst. That's worse than John Ward saying it. If your girlfriend says he tries very hard, he does put in the work, but you don't want to hear the rest of that statement. You don't want to hear it after but. So we've got a lot going on. Again, Josh Ward of the Sports Animal will join us. So this one a little bit surprising to me. And I ask you today's tough question. It's brought to you by Andy Mason of AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Tennessee number 16 in overall talent, according to 247 Sports. And when I first saw that, I thought, man, that seems a little bit low. But I told Caleb at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, I said, don't tell me what you think, because we might disagree on this. So let's do the porridge question. And that is today's tough question, brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best service prices in the biz in East Tennessee, with service for over 40 years there in the Knoxville area. So the porridge question is that too low, too high, or just about right? What say you, Calhoun? And then we'll go over some of the teams right in front of the Vols and just behind the Vols.
Well, before we start, let's be fair here. Let's get this out of the way. This is not a subjective list. This is 247 Sports doing their composite recruiting rankings, and they are basically averaging out the recruiting score of everybody on teams' rosters, including transfers, walk-ons, whoever, based on what their high school rating was.
And I think you may have said subjective, but you mean this is an objective list, right? It's just numbers.
This is an objective list. It is not subjective. This isn't like, I think Tennessee's the 16th. No. They tracked the ratings of every single high school football player that is on every team's roster, and they use that to do a composite rating. This is the most accurate, if you want to say, recruiting rating you could possibly have, is where they are right now with this. So I think in that scenario, this makes total sense to me. I mean, we're looking at Tennessee. We're still talking Tennessee is still playing one class short, if you think about it, Dave. I mean, I know they've added transfers, but that 2021 class has 4 players remaining. And when you take that into account, they didn't get a highly touted 2022 class. 2023 is their only top 10 class of the last, 2020 flirted with top 10 and 2023 was top 10. But they lost a lot of 2020 guys. They've added some transfers, but they haven't added, I'd say they've added like what? How many transfers have they added since Heupel showed up that you would say were 4 stars in high school? 7, 8? I mean, we're talking Milton, Hooker, and Hooker's not even.
I could do it real quick. Milton, Hooker, McCoy, Healy, maybe. I don't know if he was a 3 or 4 star, but he would be right on the verge, I would think, of a 4 star. Thornton, I would think, would have been a 4 star coming out of.
He was a 4 star.
So yeah. I would say roughly 6, maybe 8.
Right. I agree. And remember, Hooker's gone now. So that's one of the ones that they lose already. So
I thought you meant just in general. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so when you look at that, it makes sense. And for the record, they were 19 last year. And we've said from the start that we believe Josh Heupel in Tennessee, Josh Heupel is going to coach Tennessee above its talent level and its composite talent rankings. So what this tells me more than anything, I don't think it's too low or too high. I think it's just right. I think it's too low in the sense of I think Tennessee is going to be better than 16th. If that's what you're telling me, yes, because I think Tennessee is always going to be better than its composite talent ranking. What I do read into it, though, is it says that Tennessee's not ready to compete for a national championship just yet.
Okay. Where does Tennessee have to get for you to believe they're able to compete for a championship? Because I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I look at some of the schools above them, and Tennessee has got better coaching than those guys, and that's worth a win or 2 from year to year. I mean, I like their coaching more than Florida, who's at 15. I like their coaching more than Penn State at 13. Miami is at 12. And by the way, a lot of times, as good as Dade County is, and you've heard me say that before, a lot of times those guys are higher rated because they're from Dade County. A 3 can be a 4 and so on. I think they've got better coaching than Oklahoma. I think they've got better coaching than Texas, which is 6. I think they've got better coaching than Clemson, even though they don't have really the track record to prove it. Better coaching than A&M. So those 2 schools are 4 and 5, respectively. So let me just run down the schools. Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Texas A&M 4, Clemson 5, Texas 6, LSU 7, Southern California 8, Oklahoma 9, Oregon is 10, Notre Dame 11, Miami 12, Penn State 13, Michigan 14, Florida 15, then Tennessee at 16. If you factored in coaching in this list, where would you have the Vols?
If I factored in coaching, I would have them probably let's see. I'd have them as high as like 6, honestly. Like if I factored in coaching, I think so. But to win a national championship, I think their talent has to be top 10. They don't have to be top 5, but they have to have top 10 talent if they're going to win a national championship. And then Josh Heupel can coach the top 10 talent into the number 1 team. I don't think it's possible to coach the 16th ranked team talent-wise into the number 1 team. I don't think that's humanly possible.
Okay, but we also have to look at this, too, of some of these guys, and we always talk about this in the NFL draft. There are more 3 stars than 5 stars. Well, there are more 3 stars overall. But what about not just scheme, but coaching up guys? Because Jalen Hyatt was a 3-star guy. That's not a 3-star talent. That was just a bad grade.
Oh, he was fringe 4-star. He was a 4-star on Rivals.
Okay, well, I mean, but he was a 3-star according to the composite, and he comes out of a weird place. So how much of that is coaching guys up? Not just scheme, coaching guys up.
Coaching guys up does matter. I've said that for a long time. People have mistaken for a long time scheme versus coaching guys up. And I think there is a difference. I don't know if David Cutcliffe was the best schematic coach, but I mean, there was nobody better at coaching you up than preparing you for the NFL. Are we sure that Heupel coach? We're still not sure of this, though. Are we sure Heupel coaches guys up? And when I mean coaches them up, they will be great in the NFL? Or does he just coach them up well for their scheme in college? I mean, look, we talk about the quarterback 3-step drops in the Heupel system. That's not the type of dropbacks you're going to be doing in the NFL.
Well, they're not going to be from the shotgun 99% of the time either. But Alontae Taylor, I think, is proof. I mean, ask me this question in a year, and I can give you a definitive answer. When we see what Byron Young, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, even though he was injured last year, ask me in a year, and I believe I can give you a definitive answer. I'm not going to say, give me one more year, Caleb. I think a year from now, we'll know if he coaches them up for the pros. But in terms of winning a championship, that doesn't really matter.
No, you're right. It doesn't. It matters about coaching them up for the scheme. But at that point, I still think it still comes down to the scheme. I don't think, again, you've covered recruiting enough to know this yourself, Dave. Like, you can only coach up so much. I mean, how many teams win national championships without 3 top 10 classes in 4 years? I don't think anybody does.
Nobody. And Oregon's proof of that. They couldn't get the War Daddies in the middle, and they could get there, but there was only so much coaching. You can run people all over the place if you're Chip Kelly, and you can do different things. And if you're Brian Kelly, you can get Notre Dame to the college football playoff. But can you really win a championship? No, not unless you have elite talent. So but as far as where they stand at 16 and the numbers that we're dealing with currently, let's play with those for a while. So you've got Florida at 15. Would you trade Tennessee's roster for Florida's right now?
Right now, would I trade Tennessee?
Always thinking.
No, because of the quarterback situation. I don't think Josh Heupel could. Graham Mertz would be horrible with Josh Heupel.
Yeah, I actually thought you'd jump on that one quicker. I thought the quarterback's the difference. So if they're that close, I'd rather have 2 quarterbacks that I think can play than a bunch that I think can't. Michigan, Penn State at 13 and 14. Watched them both play a lot last year. I think Tennessee is a more talented team. So I understand that this is objective, but I think they have more talent coming into this season than Tennessee. I think Tennessee has more talent coming into the season than those 2 teams.
I don't think Tennessee has more talent than Michigan. I think Michigan has, again, this is where you go to the quarterback situation. Michigan's quarterback is also a statue in the pocket, and that's the last. Josh Heupel can't have a statue in the pocket in his system. That's just not something he can do. So
would you take Tennessee or Michigan if they were playing Saturday instead of Tennessee, Virginia?
Michigan. I take Michigan. I think you'd have the Georgia situation. I still think, and so I think Michigan's a better team. I would take Tennessee's roster for Josh Heupel coaching, but because Josh Heupel has better personnel for his system right now. Again, Michigan doesn't have the. I would say they don't have the type of players that fit Heupel's personnel, if that makes sense. So that's where I'm going with Tennessee's roster with Heupel. But overall, I take Michigan.
But I got to be honest with you, I think you're selling Heupel short. I think he adjusted his system from Oklahoma to what he does now. And I also believe that he's going to have to adjust his system slightly from Hooker to Milton. I don't think they throw the same balls equally as well. So
no, but
I think you're discounting his ability to adjust.
Oh, I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying there needs to be a little bit of mobility. J.J. McCarthy is a statue. I think Casey Clausen would beat J.J. McCarthy in a foot race. And
I think J.J. McCarthy. I think Casey Clausen would have success in Josh Heupel's offense.
I'm not so sure he would. I think there's got to be a level of quickness.
He reads quick, gets it out. He may get forced out of the pocket with the way he gets the ball out 2 or 3 times a game. I firmly believe that. Now it's going to be ugly, and he's going to throw it away as fast as he can, as well he should. But you just stop me when I run down the rest of the list, because I think you'll agree that the rest of the teams I'm going to mention do have more talent overall, top to bottom, than Tennessee. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Clemson, Texas, LSU, Southern California, Oklahoma, Oregon, Notre Dame. I could probably, I don't know. Miami. What about those?
I'll stop you there. I'm with you. I've covered enough recruiting over the years too that South Beach kids are more. Their ratings are more inflated than usual, and I think
they get a star at birth.
They really do.
It's like Bobby Ray was born last Thursday. He's already a 1-star, and he's 4 years old. 4 days old.
Yeah, I think, and we've seen that play out. Miami's actually recruited well under Al Golden for a while. So I think that, I don't think South Beach talent is there, but it is overrated. South Beach talent is and so that's a little bit different than where Tennessee recruits in-state. I think a lot of in-state Tennessee kids are overrated because of politicking and recruiting services. I think there is a look at what Miami did over a 20-year period with just Miami kids. And I think that's stuck in the mind of a lot of people, and they can't get it out of their mind.
If you include coaching, you have them at 6. I think that's right about where I would have them to. In that 6 or 7 range would be very debatable, because I think there's some really C+ coaches, coaching staffs on there. And I think Tennessee's an A+ coaching staff based off what I saw this year. They could always surprise me. I don't think they handled the Cooper Mays situation particularly well. So maybe I downgrade them after this year, but I think they're an A+ staff to this point. It is time for what the H, and this one kind of blew me away a little bit, to be real honest with you.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So sometimes we pull stuff from other places. Other times, Caleb has, or I have, what we think's a good idea. I love Caleb. I think he's a great individual. Has excellent journalistic skills, but he brought this up at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. And if you notice, I just sat there very quietly and I didn't say anything because I was going to let Caleb make his position and defend himself. Caleb thinks Tennessee might be a finesse team under Josh Heupel relative to the rest of the SEC. Why, Caleb Calhoun, are you saying that for a team that's steeped in running the football?
So we talked about this yesterday because it kind of, you brought up Tennessee versus Washington and you brought the War Daddies up front. And I'm like, I still don't think Tennessee has those War Daddies right now. And it kind of got me thinking, last year I was a big defender of Heupel, and Heupel was a big defender of his system because Heupel is not, we agree, Heupel's not what Mike Leach was. Rest in peace. He runs the ball.
Well, and explain that.
Mike Leach spreads with 4 wide receivers and just and beat you down the field with short passes the whole game, pretty much with the air raid. That's what he does. What would be a running play for a regular team is a 4-yard hitch route for Mike Leach in his offense, and he kind of sticks to the same philosophy all the way down the field. Heupel does run the ball. Heupel's flexible. His play calling is good. So I'm actually not talking about his system here. And I want to be clear on that. I'm not attacking Josh Heupel's system. I'm saying I'm wondering if
you kind of are.
No, I'm not. I'm wondering if his confidence in his system is resulting in him creating a culture of being just a little too finesse. Dave, I was very high when he was recruited on Addison Nichols. Then I was very high on Gerald Mincey signing with Josh Heupel. You are the one who's telling me that both are too soft right now to start on the offensive line for Tennessee. Everybody that's starting for Tennessee and that they're set on right now.
You said 2 offensive linemen. Who's
right.
The second offensive lineman?
Addison Nichols and Gerald Mincey.
Well, I don't think Gerald Mincey gets it. I don't know that he's soft. If you wanted to support your argument, I would say Elijah Simmons. I think he should be a lot tougher. But anyway.
Okay. I see that actually wouldn't, though, because Jimmy Pruitt recruited Elijah Simmons. So I'm going to be fair on that.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm not sure. I can't tell you 100% the deal with Mincey. I'll tell you when I can tell you I'm pretty sure about something. I'm not sure if Mincey doesn't get it upstairs or if it's a toughness issue.
The 2 only sure bets on the line for Tennessee this year, one is hurt right now, Cooper Mays, but then the other one is Javonte Spraggins. They were both Pruitt guys, both of them. And they're the only guys that we know are tough enough right now to handle playing on the offensive line, just as Darnell Wright and Jerome Carvin were last year, both Pruitt guys. On the defensive side, we still have a lot of questions right now. We have a lot of hype behind players, but look at everybody being named on defense. Amari Thomas, Bryson Eason. You mentioned Elijah Simmons, who might be soft, unfortunately. But still, all these guys are all these guys are
almost like a parent saying, and then we've got Bob, who's not the greatest son in the world, but you know.
Yes. All these guys they were still Pruitt signees even if they work out. But I think the Addison Nichols thing was a red flag to me first. Then the whole Heupel doesn't allow fighting in practice, which is a big deal to me too also, where he's just there seems to be I don't want to toughen up my players too much on the line. And we haven't seen any proof yet. And Dave, you got to give me this. We've seen zero evidence that Heupel signees are tough in the trenches.
Okay, let me address those three things. Seems to have recruited soft offensive linemen. That's a problem with Addison Nichols. I don't know that that's a widespread problem to this point. And if I misspoke at some point previously about Gerald Mincy, I apologize because I may have put you in a bad position, but doesn't prioritize defense. I think that he prioritizes defense by making sure that Tim Banks doesn't go anywhere else, but it's always going to be a program steeped in offense and scoring fast. No fighting allowed in practice. Where did that come from? Well, that came from a conversation that we had with Cooper Mays on the Ball Report. And he said there's absolutely no fighting in practice. And I thought it was odd because the 98 team had an all-out melee brawl that helped the offense toughen up, and it helped them get some confidence, and they went on to win a national championship. But that's a little antiquated. If you go back 50 years, there wasn't water on the sidelines, and they had salt tablets, and they had wet towels that you could suck on. So stuff gets antiquated. Now, do I have a problem with a little bit of fighting and maybe a brawl? Not if I'm stacked 1-85 like that 98 team. If I'm building a program, I've got a bigger problem with fighting because I don't want somebody getting hurt. And we saw that, we saw that with Butch Jones, or somebody fell on a helmet. They didn't. So
how do you get stitches from that? Sorry.
I don't. So fighting allowed in practice, I'm not sure that that's going to be his MO, but I would say 70%, if you want to go back 25 years, 70% of football practices in preseason involve some fighting. Now it's probably the exact opposite. I don't think people allow fighting nearly as much because it's not PC, number one, and two, you could get somebody hurt. So maybe that's not soft. Maybe that's smart, Caleb.
Okay.
And notice I say maybe because I'm okay with a little bit of fighting in practice.
I'm a little suspect of it. And let's bring up this name because we talk about him a lot on the show. I think we're both fans, but it is true that we keep saying that Josh Heupel's today's Steve Spurrier. Dave, let's be honest. In the 90s, Florida got exposed being finesse in a lot of games because of Steve Spurrier's system, didn't they? I mean, let's just plug in that Nebraska national title game in 95.
I would strongly disagree with that as a whole. I thought they ran the football. I thought they were tough on defense. That one game I'll give you, but I thought for the most part that was very Heupel-like in that, yes, they would pass early, but then they would run it down your throat late.
But there's a reason Spurrier only got one national title, and he backed into that national title, by the way.
True, but I think it was his ego. I think it was his ego that threw the ball too much. I thought they were physical, but his ego, when the passing game didn't work in the first half, he kept chucking it in the third quarter. So maybe we're splitting hairs a little bit.
I mean, but that has to stand out because he was willing to run it at South Carolina to agree. It just look, I think Spurrier, I love him. I love the way he dominated the SEC, but I go back and look. Remember his one national title. I don't know if you could really say he deserved that national title. He got a rematch with Florida State because all the luck fell in his favor because that year the Rose Bowl wasn't part of the bowl coalition. So the undefeated Arizona State team went to go play Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Had that not existed, Arizona State plays Florida State in the national title, and Steve Spurrier is walking away with no national championship ring to his resume. At which point his whole legacy is totally different than it is right now. And
go ahead.
And I think the Nebraska game, the Florida State, he was 3-7, I think, against Florida State. I think it was because Bobby Bowden's Florida State teams were more physical than his teams were.
Oh, see, those teams were super soft, if you ask the 98 Vols. Anyway, we got to get to Josh Ward. Let's do another one on this tomorrow, and we'll discuss the softest team to win a national championship, 90 seconds. And this guy's not soft at all. He's incredible and wrote about the most impactful balls. We'll go through them. It's on offthehooksports.com, and we'll be back in exactly 2 minutes. Hang tight.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Soft. Is there any worse thing that you can call an athlete? Soft.
I mean, in gymnastics, it's a good thing, though, because you want to land softly, right?
I guess that's the one example. I did a little gymnastics with Josh Ward's son last time I was at his house. What'd you think of that? Josh lifted him up. He did a front flip thing. That's a pretty cool trick, wasn't it?
That was. You had to lie down, if I remember correctly, for the next 15 minutes, but I didn't think that was a big deal.
I popped 15 Advil in the car is what I did. And then I got the Oxy, and it was downhill from there. All right. So, Josh, what do you think? We were just talking about this, and I want to get to your impactful balls, but could Josh Heupel's offense or entire program, be described as soft?
If you pull up the tape of the Kentucky game last year, when Tennessee destroyed the Wildcats, I don't think you're going to watch Tennessee's guys up front and think soft. I don't think you'll watch Danico Slaughter play and think soft, just because things go fast and guys are running wide open where they don't have to break tackles. That doesn't make the mindset soft. I don't think you can. JJ Crawford. Up chuck and then nodding at the Alabama defenders. That's not soft. Crazy, but not soft. So no, I don't think that at all. And we'll see what the next phase of players is. But Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins on the interior of Tennessee's offensive line, Jerome Carvin a year ago now with the Chiefs, definitely not soft.
Wait, but
yes,
that was my point though. Was Josh? Those were all Pruitt recruits. I'm wondering if Heupel's targeting soft guys in the trenches. We haven't seen a Heupel guy work out or stand out in the trenches just yet. I guess you could say J.J. Crawford as a junior college in the 2021 class has worked out. But outside of that,
yeah, Heupel brought him in. Well, and this is transfer, not recruiting, but he's still brought in by Heupel. Everything I hear about Omar Norman Lott is the opposite of soft, and he has to go show it. He's one of the important players for Tennessee this upcoming season. But I still look at players now entering their third year. You're right from a recruiting standpoint. There is that next step. Okay, you have to show your ability to recruit, develop, and continue, in this case, the success that happened a year ago with those players leading the way, having been brought in by a previous coaching staff, almost across the board with the guys that were the highest impact players But in terms of the mindset, we talk about culture, right? The word's used probably too often in sports, but it does matter and it does apply to the conversation. Part of that's off the field. Are you taking care of business? Are you buying into what the system will be? Everything that goes into it. But that is how you perform on the field. And I just don't think Tennessee could have done what it did last year without toughening up, because they didn't show a tough mindset a couple of years ago when things got tough. They did, I think, over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I don't think any of the three of us has said Omar Norman Lott. He's flaccid.
No,
I'm sorry, I meant soft. I used a synonym. My bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that either.
You've never said that on the radio, correct?
But Josh, as you know, that Dave likes players who try really hard. he said that earlier yesterday on our show. He said that he loves Utah because even though their defensive linemen are undersized, they try really hard.
I hate it when somebody says they try really hard. It means you're not any good. I mean, if you try really hard, you're not any good. Unless they say you're really good and he has a great work ethic, then that's something different. Let's get to Josh's column. It's the 10 most impactful balls on Off the Hook Sports, and that leads us to 4 Downs. It's brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So it's a long list, so I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to ask Josh and Caleb some questions about these cats, and I'll weigh in as well. So the 10 most impactful balls for the 2023 season: safety Jalen McCullough, running back Jalen Wright, wide receiver Ramel Keaton, cornerback Danico Slaughter, linebacker Keenan Pili, linebacker Aaron Beasley, defensive tackle Omari Thomas, offensive tackle John Campbell Jr., center Cooper Mays, quarterback Joe Milton is number 1. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. So we bring you 4 Downs, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. No contacts, no glasses. I can see near and far. They can handle your cataract or LASIK surgery, which I got, and it's local, and it's phenomenal. You'll love Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn there on the Weisgarber in West Knoxville. So let's get to it. Cooper Mays is going to help us get through this. We always love visiting with Cooper. Not so much now because he's not in the best of mood from week to week because he's hurt. But Cooper, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Get better, Coop. We're rooting for you. What down?
Coop here. First down.
All right, Josh, let me ask you this. Of that group, what player do you have the most confidence in that he will be the most impactful ball? Not that they need, but you have the most confidence he'll be the dude. And then Caleb, I'll ask you the same question.
Most confidence in. I'm going to go Amari Thomas just ahead of Aaron Beasley. I have a lot of confidence in both of those players. I thought Amari Thomas was a good player for Tennessee a year ago, showed the progress that he was expected to make in his second season playing for Rodney Garner. And now I think he can be one of the top interior defensive linemen in the SEC. I think a year from now, Amari can be an NFL player. I'm really just having to choose one here. I could have said Beasley and had the same level of confidence. The way he performed over the course of last season showed his progress. The way he played in the Orange Bowl was MVP worthy, in my opinion, against Clemson. So Amari Thomas just ahead of Aaron Beasley.
Caleb?
Well, Josh stole mine, but I got another one, so it's okay. Which is
I thought you thought Aaron Beasley was going to fall flat on his face this year.
No, I said he stole mine with Amari Thomas.
Oh, okay.
I don't have that much faith in Aaron Beasley yet. I will say you guys have convinced me talking about him playing more at his natural role now, which he didn't play all last year, but different story for another day. I'm going linebacker still, though. I'm going Keenan Pili. I think Keenan Pili is a much more natural fit at middle linebacker than Beasley or Jeremy Banks was last year. Tennessee didn't really have a middle linebacker, so I think Keenan Pili is just – I mean, that was probably the best plug-and-play addition they got in the offseason through the transfer portal, bar none.
I got a tie, receiver Ramel Keaton and Omari Thomas, because they've done it before. So yeah. I would have a tie between those two guys as impactful balls. even though, Josh, I don't think he's going to be the most impactful receiver, but as far as confidence, I think he's going to be there in what he does.
Yeah, Keaton is an interesting one on the list. I could have written Brew McCoy there. I could have put Dante Thornton. If I chose Squirrel White, I think a lot of people would have nodded their head. I chose Ramel because I am sure that he's going to have a big season. I think he's a player that we talk about as a breakout candidate sometimes this season when he already broke out last year. I think because of the excitement with the other players, which is understandable, it's easy to kind of forget Ramel's big catch against Florida and his big catch against Alabama. He caught that first pass on the 2 plays that they needed to complete to set up the field goal to beat Alabama. There was the connection with Joe Milton. I don't know who Tennessee's top receiver is going to be this season. We might get to the end of the year and not know who it is based on results kind of being spread out. But I'm very bullish on Ramel Keaton. I don't think he's gotten enough attention. Everybody's gotten some attention, especially at receiver in this offense during the offseason. But I think Keaton deserves more attention. That's why I put him on the list.
Least confident. Which down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Thank you. Least confident, Josh, out of that group.
The guy listed first, Jalen McCullough. He's played a lot. He came in as a very highly touted player. Tennessee brought in other defensive backs. They've had other guys work at safety to try to push. McCullough, it appears, has held on to a starting position, but he needs to play at a higher level this year. He knows that. The coaches know that. Teammates that are competing with him for playing time know that. So how Tennessee plays at safety this year is still going to be a big part of how Tennessee performs as a defense. So McCullough is on the list of impactful players because that could go one way or the other.
Caleb, I would actually go Aaron Beasley just because I'm not basing it off one game against Clemson. So I think he'll have a good year. I think Josh picked 10 great guys. There's really nobody here I have no confidence in, but that would be my least. Let's get to your least before we get to 3rd and 4th down.
I'm going to go to Nico Slaughter. I know there's a lot of hype behind what he can do, but I watched him play last year. So that's enough for me to say.
If you want to read about the guy that Caleb has no confidence in, I wrote about it this morning. So check it out on I
do this crazy thing where I actually believe in film on the field. So
yeah, this crazy thing where you just rip my stuff all the time. All right. Go ahead, Josh. You're about to say something.
Yeah, way to slaughter the interest in that piece that Dave wrote.
Captain Dad joke. Here we go.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Of that group, and I mean college NFL, biggest upside, Josh.
Biggest upside? I'll go Joe.
I will too.
Yeah, I think there are a few guys that are eligible in that conversation. Like Jalen Wright could be an all-SEC running back this year. I love what he might be able to do in this offense. I also recognize it's a position where things will be split up and there's injury potential too. But I mean, Joe Milton's upside is Heisman. So I'll go Joe Milton.
He's Richardson-like, Caleb, and Anthony Richardson. We can knock him all we want to in college, but he's locked down a starting job in the NFL. That's where the NFL is moving. So I would say biggest upside would be Milton. You?
It's hard for me to argue that, but I'm going to be a little avant-garde on this one and just say John Campbell Jr., just because the coaches plugged him in at left tackle immediately. And I know I do feel like maybe they wanted him to win the job, so they helped him win the job, but it just seemed for him to so quickly pick up that job kind of stands out to me coming from Miami. So I think there's some raw talent there that maybe we're missing, and maybe we'll see it on the field this year.
And only Josh can convert on this down.
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
Who didn't make the cut?
Second down?
I think it's 4th down there,
Center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Stupid machine. It wasn't my fault.
Josh Davis, basically, I tell him no all the time. He's the ref in the Missouri-Colorado game in 1990. When he does
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Say it again, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Who didn't make the cut?
Who didn't make the cut? Omar Norman Lott was one of them because I said, okay, well, I've got Amari. Am I going to put 2 interior defensive line? I listed him along with Bryson Eason as that group is something to be excited about. So Omar would be in that 11 to 15 range, and then pick your guy on the edge. I didn't put a guy on the edge because I wasn't really sure. Do I go Tyler Barron? Do I go Roman Harrison, who's listed as a starter? Do I take a shot at like Joshua Josephs? But then that's a positive. I don't think that's a negative. So if so, then that would be really good for the defense. I think it's more of a collective effort that needs to help Tennessee, where you're talking about 4 or 5 guys that can be somewhat equally disruptive.
All right, so we did a little
Josh, if you could only see what your face froze, it looked like what you froze for a second. And if you could only see what your face looked like when you froze right there, it was beautiful.
Oh, I don't doubt that part.
we had a little boo-boo there, so I think that everybody got what Josh had to say. But we do have a poll essentially about Tennessee's probably most important unit, and that is the defensive backfield. I mean, they have to get better there. So let's go through that right now, and it's on offthehooksports.com, and it's a secondary breakdown. So Josh, I asked 2 questions of everybody that contributes to the website. You, Jimmy Himes, John Adams didn't respond, but that's not a shock.
The Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's right. Is he a Hall of Famer?
I think he's going to the Knoxville Hall of Fame tonight.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. That's the intel I have.
He didn't mention it. All right. Is it the Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame or Sports Writers Hall of Fame?
The Greater Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame. Grant Williams, the guest speaker this year, big time.
Oh, nice.
Went from signing the Alien and Sedition Acts as president to going into the Hall of Fame as a journalist. Gotta love his transition over 200 years.
All right, so Josh, I asked this question, and that was the most improved ball in the defensive backfield, and who will we say is the best overall? So who did you go with?
Most improved, I went Kamal Hadden. He has the same talent we discussed a year ago. He's had to battle injuries. He did last year. He has had to recently again. That was part of my holdup. But last year didn't go how he hoped. The South Carolina game was a disaster, and I think that caused his stock to drop. He kind of saw his name leave conversations talking about the corner position this year in the defensive backfield, but he still has a lot of ability. So if healthy, most improved, I think, will be Kamal Hadden.
Okay, if you can add his picks in there, I just texted them to you because I forgot Josh after our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. We've got everybody up there but Josh. So if you see that, don't think I was trying to stick it to you. All right, so I'll tell you who I went with. Jimmy Himes went with most improved. He said either Christian Charles or Jordan Thomas. And then you have Fred White, who knows a little bit about these cats. And he said Danico Slaughter to Marion McDonald. And I'm trying to think if I've left anybody out. Now let's get to Caleb Calhoun. Who were your 2?
Well, I do have to point out that since you mentioned Kamal Hadden, I spoke with Jaru by text earlier today because we're teasing this now. Dave and I are going to do a How You Living segment in the coming weeks about athletes who did stuff stupid the previous week's games. And the first thing Jaru thought of was like when Kamal Hadden talked all that trash against South Carolina and then didn't make a single stop.
Fair. By the way, that was not the concept of that bit at all, but we'll go with that. Go ahead. Who are your guys?
But my guys I'm actually with Fred White, and I know I said I had the least confidence in him on the last segment, but I do think Danico Slaughter will end up being the most improved. I just said least confidence because I can't be sure about that. But the best, I think, is Wesley Walker. And Josh, I don't know if you know this. I shocked Jimmy Hyams with this stat last week. Did you know Wesley Walker has the highest PFF grade of any returning safety in the SEC?
I did know that. Yes. I was a little confused because I feel like he should have had to play more there to be eligible for it. But yes, I did know that. I thought last year he would make a big impact on Tennessee's defense and just didn't get the snaps that I felt like he deserved, and still continued to keep that feeling at the end of the season. So that's a good pick, I think, with Walker, because he came in with a lot of experience at Georgia Tech. I recognize it's Georgia Tech, but more experience and more success probably than a number of his teammates.
Telling you guys, I see the flashes from Danico Slaughter, the way he flips his hips and his explosiveness. And I remember Josh saying to me one time, man, I've never been around anybody that has an eye for football like you do. And I said, thank you, Josh. You try very hard.
Well, that's true, but you didn't see Al Wilson standing behind you when I said that. So I said, right, if you could please step aside. I was trying to have a conversation here.
And then Al goes, bleep you both, get out of the bleeping way.
Yeah. I don't think Al needs me to move anybody for him, to be clear. I stepped over, but Danico was also my pick for for best. So most improved was Kamal Hadden, and then Danico was my pick for best defensive back for the Vols this fall.
Yeah, look at him. He didn't mention it until he heard what I went with. And then
I'm siding with our message board. I wrote a lot on my previous blog buying into Kamal Hadden, and then I watched him last year, and I'm like, I sometimes I get to a point where like I've seen enough. There's no possible way you can be good.
It's called the Danny White syndrome. For those that are too young, it has nothing to do with the athletic director. It's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in the 80s for 8 years. Josh?
Oh, y'all stuck with him for 8 years?
Yes.
Or any Dallas Cowboy quarterback for the last 25 to 30.
Yeah.
Tony Romo wasn't bad.
Gary Hogeboom, Steve Pallure. Anybody remember those names on the message board? If you remember those names, then you're a sad Cowboys fan. Babe Laufenberg.
Yeah, Tony Romo was good. Dak's a solid quarterback, but I know that the franchise is looking for more results.
Yeah, Tony's good.
Tony
Romo is great if you need somebody to practice their Heimlich maneuver. Because he's choking all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty good.
First of all, he did convert the pass to Des Bryant. That was a catch. That was a beautiful throw. It's not his fault that he got robbed on that play.
I'm just telling you, when I lift in the morning, I throw high heat, and that was pretty good. Josh has smiled at least 3 of my jokes, so I'll take that. We can just end the show right now, but we're not going to. Josh, you're on from noon to 3 on the Sports Animal. Follow him at Josh_Ward. Great stuff as always. I was really impressed with that piece, and thank you so much. We love you being a part of what we do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There were more players to try to consider than if you would ask me to do this a year ago or definitely 2 years ago. You know, when Josh Heupel said the roster is dramatically different, I do think you could go 11 through 20 and still talk about high-impact players. So that tells you the potential there, but some pieces need to come together. Some of them are question marks, and they need to be answered pretty early in the season.
You know what's funny? Jalen Hyatt doesn't make this list a year ago.
I don't think so. No, and that's an example. And this was brought up to us on the radio this week. I mean, it's true, and I think we talked about it earlier in the summer, but it's worth remembering. A year ago, there was a lot of excitement about how good Darnell Wright could be. But a year ago, nobody was saying he might be the best tackle in the country. He might be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. That wasn't the conversation a year ago. He went out and had the season that he did. So to Caleb's point about John Campbell Jr., a lot of talk about how well he's done since he arrived. Jacob Warren was talking him up earlier this week. So, yeah, there will be some players that by the end of the season we say, you know what, did more than we expected.
Yeah, I will say this from a very good source. I had a guy tell me that Darnell Wright was super special before the season last year. So I was a little bit early on that bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
The guy he picked this year, just for the record, Dylan Sampson, to take that next huge monster leap.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, right. Also, Darnell was a former 5-star guy who had been a solid player the year before, and his upside was obvious. He was such an important player for the team last year, but he still had to prove it. Just like Jalen Hyatt still had to prove that he could be a big, consistent touchdown scorer, and boy, he proved that.
Okay, so Rocky Top Tom, hold on just a second, Caleb. Rocky Top Tom wants this question asked, so I'm going to go ahead and put it up. Aside from any quarterbacks, which current UT player do you pick to build a team around 100 bonus points for picking a defenseman? You all just hit this one around, and he wanted Josh's answer before he leaves. I'm going to go ahead and steal the best one. It's Al Wilson.
Oh, this is all-time Tennessee player that you would build around.
Yes, I think. Well, it's going to be.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah, that makes more sense.
He literally says current, guys.
He says current?
Yeah. Which current UT player? Yeah.
Oh, well, there's not one that's not on Josh's list.
Man, it really does feel like 98. If Al's on the team. How about that?
I thought it was all time. I tell you what.
I can't believe I didn't put Eric Berry on my impact list. Don't you think that he's going to?
I didn't see current. Stop making fun of me. I would okay. Current player to build around. I'm going to go offense. Cooper Mays. Defense.
Amari Thomas.
Keenan Pilley.
Okay.
Caleb. Fire.
Offense. Brew McCoy, I'm sorry, just a rare special weapon to me is Brew McCoy.
That's
and defense,
Josh has to get out of
Josh stole it from me, Amari Thomas. I'm with Josh on that.
Josh, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the game. We certainly appreciate it as always.
You got it. Thanks a lot, guys.
By the way, I was about to go with Doug Atkins, which he should have a huge year.
Atkins, yeah, he's a riser. I like a lot.
He really knows how to bring it.
Well, can Dylan Sampson beat out G. McKeever for the starting job at running back?
Thank you. I don't like either of you. Thank you, Josh.
Give the ball to Jamal.
Josh Ward on the Sports Animal. 90 seconds, and then more of a little bit of a secondary breakdown, but actually college football, the playoff committee has said there will not be any changes to the format until the realignment dust settles. What does that mean for the Vols? 90 seconds with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. Turn your notifications on because we're dropping Celebrate 98 action and a new show that we're going to announce that's coming up that you will absolutely love. He's Caleb. I'm Dave. Off the Hook Sports.
Candace, I was really heavy into the drug culture. I was selling drugs. I was just constantly in pain. I was missing like a good support system in my life. Candace has given me everything that I need in order to successfully have a wonderful recovery, in order to have a life that I didn't even know was possible before. And it's not just about me anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, so Tom basically took Caleb Calhoun out behind the woodshed and took him to task because Caleb and to some extent me come up with the topics that we talk about, along with our contributors, John Adams, and Jimmy Himes, and Josh Ward. But he came up with one that I want to do tomorrow, and I don't want to get caught up on it. But the offensive and defensive player, considering age, that you would most want to build around. Because you wouldn't say Joe Milton because he's got 1 year left. So the offense is kind of pretty easy. But maybe we say other than Nico. We'll workshop this thing. But I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to my man Smoky Mountain Red. His nickname's probably AC, based on what I'm hearing, given the fact that he's a freshman. So can we do that tomorrow, Caleb? We got stuff to get to today, but can we add that in tomorrow?
Sure, that's fine. By the way, shouldn't the shout out be to Rocky Top Tom, not Smoky Mountain Red? Sorry.
Well, no, Smoky Mountain Red said my guy, Rocky Top Tom.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
he
saying.
came up with the idea. Smoky Mountain Red came up with my guy.
Well, I thought of another topic.
We have to factor in age.
That's fine. Okay. We can. Well, and honestly, I don't factor in age much in a win now league with the transfer portal. I think age is kind of overrated. I'm just going to be the one to tell you. I think age is the most overrated factor. I always thought it was overrated in the NFL. I think the NFL's a win now league and you take the better player regardless of age. In college, I'm getting that way now too, because I think that within the transfer portal, with how easy it is to reload, I don't really care if I have a guy for 3 years. I want what I can get in 1 year.
I'm gonna disagree there. I would take 3 years of an Al Wilson over, let's say, a 1 year greatness of Reggie White, who was not great throughout his career. He was great as last year. I would take 3 years of Al Wilson than 1 year of Reggie White. But anyway, let's do that tomorrow. Getting sidetracked.
Fair enough. By the way, just a funny thing, because you were talking about the Cowboys earlier. I thought about this outside of Peyton Manning and Matthew Stafford. Did Quincy Carter have the best NFL career of any SEC East quarterback?
We can do that tomorrow.
I didn't want to. It's like Quincy Carter, Rex Grossman, or Tim Tebow. One of the three is third.
Okay, so the college football playoff comes out and talks to us, which that's nice of them to do. We certainly appreciate that. And they say that there will be no changes to their format until the realignment dust settles. That means the top 6 conference champs still get an automatic bid. I'm trying real hard to determine who the top 6 conferences are after this year. So, I mean, they're going to have to adjust it by the time the 12-team playoff kicks in. So what statement does this actually make?
What this basically says is they're basically openingly saying, we don't think the ACC is long for this world, so we're just going to wait till the ACC collapses before we change our format.
You jumped ahead of me. That's what I was going to say. So who are the conferences left out?
So right now, the top 6
the
conference.
Pac-12.
I'm sorry?
We know the Pac-12 is going to get left out, right?
The Pac-12 is not going to exist next year.
Right. So it's out. It's not one of the 6.
Yeah. So it's not who's going to get left out. It's who's going to get in. So the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, and unfortunately ACC champs will get automatic bids in 2024. That's going to happen.
Okay. So if you had to predict the ACC falls apart before 2024 and that affects the college football playoff, you would say not next year, but soon. Is that your answer?
Right. Right.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think there's just too much bubbling up to the surface with the Florida State thing, with the teams meeting. Listen, there's this union mentality with the ACC because of the long television contract, but I think that's been chipped away at. And I've seen a union basically lose all of its power at the Knoxville News Sentinel. They had a guild, which is a union, and it's basically the same thing. And used to be the old joke was, if you came into the office and shot and killed somebody, there had to be 6 witnesses before you would get fired. And if there weren't 6 witnesses, you would probably get retained. Well, they slowly lost their power over time. I think the ACC as a, air quote, union has lost their power, and I think the final push will be in the next offseason. I think it was really close to happening over the past couple of months. So I'm going to say both the Pac-12's out, which they won't exist, like you said, and the ACC will be out by next year.
Wow. Okay. So what if they don't change the format then? Because the SEC, Big 12, and Big 10 is it. Who are the other 3 conference champions? The American and the Mountain West, maybe.
I think the Mountain West, if you can add Stanford and Cal, is good enough.
Okay, Mountain West.
So I'm okay with the Mountain West.
Then the American, which is basically those teams that vied for the Big 12 but couldn't get in. The Tulane, South Floridas, UTSAs, Navy, Temple, those type. The old Conference USA, honestly, from the 90s. So that we're at 5. And then what? Conference USA or Sun Belt? I mean, the integrity of this is laughable if you put a Sun Belt team in the college football playoff.
Well, it's kind of laughable with Conference USA, isn't it? Who's the best? What are
yes,
the best
it
teams
is.
in Conference USA?
Let's see, Texas San Antonio, who Tennessee plays, has won the Conference USA the last 2 years, and they're now in the American. So I don't MTSU. What if MTSU is in the playoff?
I think you'll cut it down to 4 automatic bids by next year. I think no ACC and no Pac-12.
That's the best. Cut it down to 4 because SEC, Big 12. I wouldn't even do 4 automatic. What I do is, I would do 4 automatic, but I do it differently. The SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 get automatic bids, period, no matter what. I don't care where they're ranked. The champions of those 3 conferences get automatic bids. And then the best team of the other conferences gets an automatic bid.
Now, Travis brings up a good point. He says, Dave, you're wrong. The media loves ACC teams, Clemson, Florida State. You know how it is. They do, but I think they'll love Clemson and Florida State somewhere else.
Yeah, they're going to be in the SEC. The media is not kowtowing for Pittsburgh, guys. They're not going to get in love to throw Pittsburgh into the college football playoff.
Yeah, and I want to see where Notre Dame ends up in this thing. Do you realize Notre Dame is essentially saying that they can be no better if they're relevant in the college football playoff? And they'll be relevant with 12 teams. They're not going to be relevant with 4 if that were the path that the sport was going. But if Notre Dame continues to be independent, where do they fit in? Because you're basically telling them if the top 4 have to be conference champions, which is what we're saying, right? That's where we are right now. Then here's what Notre Dame has. They have a $50 to $60 million television contract, which I've been told is going to be signed here in the next few months. They have the ability to schedule who they want to schedule. which there's something cool about that. They don't get locked into having to play an overly difficult schedule. And they play a pretty cool schedule. I mean, let's be honest, when you include the teams that they play. But they're saying, without being a part of a conference, that they're never going to get a bye, ever, in the college football playoff. You're saying at best you can do is 5, which means you host a 12. A 12 Cincinnati, let's just say, and I'm saying, let's say they came in at 12 a couple of years ago, or at 12 TCU, let's say some team in that realm that sneaks into the playoffs, they can go to Notre Dame and win. Notre Dame's not uber talented. I know we just did the talented list and they were higher than Tennessee, but I'm just here to tell you a lot of those stars come from they are Notre Dame. I mean, those teams can go there and win. Let's take, for instance, let's say Tennessee's 12 next year and Notre Dame's 5. Are you telling me Tennessee can't go to Notre Dame and win? Are you telling me that if
I think they would win this year?
Okay, let's say Alabama's 12 and they had to go to Notre Dame. Let's say the third SEC team gets in. The third SEC team can go to Notre Dame and win. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree.
I mean, they got to do something or get off the pot, as the saying is.
I'm going to go a step further. This contract Notre Dame signs is going to be the last contract they sign before they join a conference. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm sorry?
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So the Big Ten's new deal, even with Oregon and Washington joining, and by the way, they're joining at a discount, but say they paid all 18 teams equally, it would be $55 million already. Now, I think they're going to up their TV deal. On top of that, they're paying Oregon and Washington less. So really, we're talking 61, 62 million-ish probably per team. And Notre Dame, you said their contract's going to be 60 million now. So Notre Dame, a direct TV contract, is not getting as much now as Northwestern is playing in the Big Ten, which is crazy. I think the Big Ten has now gotten big enough. And when the SEC does its next round of negotiations in 2035, and by the way, maybe before then, I'm really hoping they do. I think you think they will get out of this contract with ESPN, right, Dave? With the $300 million. There's no way they can keep that going.
That the SEC can get out of the ESPN contract?
Yes. At least force ESPN to renegotiate.
Yeah, probably, but I don't know that they need to. I've been told by some people at the SEC office that now they may be saying this to make themselves look better, that the Big Ten contract, the numbers are actually inflated a little bit. Now, so I don't know. So if that comes back to the pack and we're comparing 300 million to what right now? 1.2 billion or something?
Yeah, 300 million to $1 billion per year.
Okay. So if we're comparing 300 to 400 million, I don't think that's a big difference either way. And they constantly re-up each other like quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. Right now, it looks stupid out of whack, but I don't know that it's going to look stupid out of whack 365 from now.
Okay, so 2030, what is it? It'll be 2033 this contract's up. Let's say hypothetically the SEC does get a deal. By that point, I mean, the SEC is going to be, as long as they hold firm and don't let the Big Ten cannibalize them from having so much power and money up until then, the SEC, can you imagine the deal they're going to be able to negotiate TV-wise after what the Big Ten just negotiated? I mean, we're talking they could do one. The SEC might have the leverage to go get Notre Dame at that point. But Notre Dame's going to realize they can make more money being in a conference with that TV revenue than what they can on their own. That's finally going to happen.
The thing about Notre Dame to the Big Ten, not only are they a better fit in the style of football and the region, is if you're Notre Dame, wouldn't you rather go to the Big Ten and have a rotation of really 2 elite teams and one team that has a couple of years every once in a while, and that's Penn State. So you're Michigan, Ohio State. If you're looking at
your biggest rivalries, conference rivals now.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the SEC, you've got right now Alabama and Georgia are locks. I mean, that's why I don't think LSU. I don't think that Notre Dame is ever going to go to the SEC. So, because right now, if you look at it, Alabama and Georgia are locks. Georgia's a long time lock. I don't want to look at it in a short span of time period, but I believe that Florida is probably eventually going to be good. They may have to get rid of detail-oriented Billy Napier, that's kind of like he's a really good guy that we talked about earlier in the show. He's detail-oriented. Well, great.
He tries hard.
Yeah, he tries hard. He tries very hard.
I actually don't think Napier's the reason they'll fail, though. I think it's actually there's issues with the program. That's why they're going to fail.
Well, I agree, but I just think with the talent, they'll get it cleaned up somehow, like Tennessee did. You know, there's too much going for that program to be non-relevant for a long amount of time. But you may be right, because they were non-relevant before the 90s.
Yeah, the thing that's working, and I'll tell you what, if the ACC is able to figure it out, which they won't, but say they do, say Florida State and Miami are just stuck in the ACC until, 2035 or whatever, say this never gets solved, do you realize how good a shape Florida's going to be in at that point with them having revenue that's 3 times as much as the other 2 schools? They're going to recruit the whole state of Florida and have it on lock.
I think Billy Napier is the one individual that gets hurt the most if the SEC signs a new big TV deal, if that's somehow renegotiated, because Florida's going to look at him and go, we can do a lot better than that dude. I mean, he can't even get Jaden Rashada paid, for the love of all that's holy.
That wasn't him, though. Come on, that was the NIL. I think I do believe, and we talked to some people at SEC Media Days. The narrative in Florida, at least, seems to be like, from people close to the program, seems to be that Billy Napier isn't the problem. It's the administration and the people and the boosters that are just super disorganized.
Let me tell you something, and I'm only slightly exaggerating. Okay, if I'm Josh Heupel, and this is what happened to Billy Napier, he had a quarterback show up on campus. So imagine Nico showing up on campus, and there's not the money that he was promised. I'm going to go get a club, and I'm going to find the CEO in charge, and I'm going to Nancy Kerrigan him. So I'm telling you, that is embarrassing beyond losing one player. You can say it's not his fault, but ultimately it's all your fault when you're the head coach. And that got blown apart and was embarrassing.
I agree. And it's whatever. We knew this last year. Remember, we were talking about Florida. You got a report. For those who don't know, I had just joined the show. And I did a report on On3 doing the largest NIL collectives in August. And Dave, I guess it was September, we were doing a show, talked about, you had heard reporting that Florida's NIL was not together. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. What we're realizing is Florida cobbled together their NIL the way the Mets tried to rely on Bernie Madoff to make to buy a World Series in the 2000s. And so that's kind of what happened. They cobbled an NIL together when they realized they were way behind. I will say, I'm laughing. Probably the worst take on ESPN ever made.
Worst prediction ever made.
Yes, it will be Ryan Clark saying that he wishes LSU hired Billy Napier instead of Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I can go with that.
That's the worst take ever.
All right, so here we go with Caleb's picks, and Caleb will give you some winning picks. We'll see. He didn't have a great week 0, but week 1.
Yeah, don't give me a break.
Week 1, man, the first couple weeks in college is hard. I mean, it's hard. You don't know where these guys' heads are. It's kind of like a bowl game. I mean, probably the worst thing to bet on is the beginning of college football season and bowl games. And really, I know somebody that does quite well on Major League Baseball. I always thought that was the worst. And if you bet on regular season Major League Baseball, you probably have a problem. But if you bet on the bowl games and early season college football, that's being brave, man. I got nothing but mad respect for you. So let's go ahead and get into that. Let's get your picks, and it's brought to you by Zen Sports. Zen Sports is the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares on Zen Sports. What you see is what you get. With their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for the first 15 days when you sign up with the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that, and refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports is bringing the cash back to Tennessee, so if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Use the promo code HOOKED. It is time to make some money with the one, the only Caleb Calhoun. So his picks are up on the website right now, and I believe they are, aren't they?
They're not above the fold. They're right below the fold.
Okay, I got you. Fold, using your own newspaper terms. You're getting older than me. All right, so the 3 best bets. I actually want to start with those, if you don't mind. I'm kind of going in reverse order.
We're going to call this each week, guys, the Hooker Specials. Okay,
Hooker Specials.
The Menage a Trois, because they're the 3.
Yeah,
okay?
you usually have to pay extra for that, Cotton.
Exactly. I wanted to go there.
LSU 2.5 points against Florida State. I'm guessing you take Florida State LSU because you don't like Florida State, and I would agree.
I would say if you could get an alternate bet for more money, go LSU 7 against Florida State. Honestly, I'm seeing a 2-score win for LSU. I don't know if you think it's. I think they win comfortably. I don't know if you do, Dave, but I think they win pretty comfortably.
I do too. Ball State, Kentucky, the under is 49.5. Why do you like that?
Because Ball State average, the totals for their games last year was right at 50.5. That's going to be less playing a defense like Kentucky's. And Kentucky, I know they have a new offensive coordinator, and I know they have Devin Leary at quarterback. It's still a Mark Stoops team. It's still ball control and defense. I'm in love with the under in this game.
Yeah, I like it as well because I think they're going to go back to more ball control after the great Will Levis experiment exploded in his knee or a big toe. Iowa, Utah State, the under is 43.
I mean, don't you always bet the under with Iowa? Okay, let me give you this rundown real quick. Utah State has one of the worst offenses in college football entering this year. Okay. Iowa has a very good defense and also one of the worst offenses in college football entering this year. And Iowa, I don't know if you saw this, Dave, Cade McNamara is not going to play this weekend for Iowa at quarterback. So I'm in love with the under in this game. I'm seeing like 27-0 Iowa.
All right, so let's run through some SEC games. Utah 4.5 against Florida. Who do you like that? There.
So full disclosure, because we're live, if you guys see this tomorrow.
Yeah. So forget about that one.
You guys can read that on the website because this
check
is
it out on the
live.
website. It's going to be dated if you watch later on. Tennessee, Virginia. Tennessee, a 28-point favorite. I want to get to that, but I want to do it last. Ball State, a 29.5-point dog to Kentucky. You got to love Ball State with that big of a number, right?
Yeah, I love Ball State with that number. I don't think Kentucky. I think even if Kentucky could win by more, they're not going to try to win by more.
Auburn, a 35-point favorite over UMass. I'll tell you what I like about this game. I like Auburn to cover and maybe beat UMass so badly that my son decides to leave UMass and move back to the South.
So UMass, based on SP Plus rankings, UMass is the worst team in college football this year. Now, they did beat, in their defense, New Mexico State last week, 41-30. I'm not reading anything into that because New Mexico State is also near the bottom on FPI and SP Plus. So I think Auburn's going to dominate. Hugh Freeze, I don't like him, but he's an offensive genius. I think Auburn might hit the over by themselves in this one.
Texas A&M, a 38-point favorite over New Mexico. I like them to cover. Where do you stand?
I do too. And the reason I like them to cover is whatever little I think of their offense. Dave, New Mexico averaged 13 points a game last year. And Texas A&M, for all their flaws, did have a top 25 defense. So I think I think Texas A&M is going to be disappointed if they hold New Mexico to 0 points.
MTSU, 39-point dog to Alabama. This might be the toughest one on your board, but if I had to, I'd take Alabama.
I'm taking MTSU. I think Nick Saban is going to experiment with quarterbacks. I see like 45-10 Alabama. That's what I see.
North Carolina, 2.5-point dog to South Carolina. South Carolina, after the way they finished the season, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. I would like South Carolina to cover this team, even though I think Drake May is the best player in college football.
So Drake May, I'm more sold on Drake May than Spencer Rattler because we don't know which Spencer Rattler we're going to get. I'm also more sold on North Carolina's offensive coordinator. They brought in Chip Lindsey. South Carolina brought in one of the worst offensive coordinator hires of all time, a guy who thought Jake Locker was going to be better than Peyton Manning in 2011 and Dowdle Gaines. So my pettiness shows I will never forgive him as a Titans offensive coordinator. And I think that'll hold back Spencer Rattler. That's also the reason I'm taking the under in this game, despite two quarterbacks, Dave.
There you go. Message board, according to Travis, said the best three bets are Tennessee and the points. Agreed. FSU and the points. We disagree with that.
Don't crack Travis with that one.
Kentucky and the under.
I agree with that. Well, I agree with the under.
Yeah, I agree with the under. I think that game is going to be a little bit closer because it's going to be low scoring. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Tomorrow. Big deal. So we always have a Football Friday with Fred, but we're also going to have another special guest. Ron Slay will join us because I want to visit with him. And he's going to be on the show tomorrow to see what kind of pub that this game in Nissan Stadium is getting with fans in Nashville. They mostly love the Titans. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what kind of pub is this getting? In other words, does it help Tennessee grow their brand in Nashville, or is it already as big as it's going to be? Does it help Tennessee in recruiting, or is it already a Tennessee town? So we're going to visit with former Tennessee basketball player Ron Slay, who's the afternoon talk show host on 104.5 The Zone. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you're watching. This has been a